Hello fellow moviegoers and welcome to a double review of more mainstream movies, since the last two reviews I made were niche European cinema, peak European cinema I might add, for the Brancaleone one. So if you haven't checked those out, check them out, they're on my channel. And since I do want to make movie reviews, there's no way I can't also talk about the mainstream Hollywood movies that are coming out. And we're going to be talking about two of the movies I saw in June, and I'll give you my opinions on them. I won't be giving away too much of these movies since, you can watch them in the cinema still, and I don't want to give too many spoilers, just, my overall opinions on what I think about them in quick fashion, I hope. So let's start off with the first movie I saw, and that was Furiosa, the prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. Now, before I give you my opinions on Furiosa, I want to give my quick opinions on Mad Max Fury Road. This movie is a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. Insane action, amazing performances, and an overall one of the best movie experiences I had in the last 10 years. Easily. Now, coming into Furiosa, you have to think to yourself, is this going to be better than Mad Max? Probably not. And that's what everyone's mindset going into this movie should be. This is not going to be on the same level as Fury Road. This will be its own thing, and we will go into the movie with those expectations. And I gotta say, this movie does have some really good stuff, and then some stuff that I didn't like too much. In overall, it's a lot more narrative based than Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max Fury Road kind of throws you into this world and kind of says go along with it or die. And in this movie we get more of a main character, a backstory, a progression of the character, an evolution of the character and the surroundings of her world. And with this they give you a little bit more sort of diplomatic stuff and how the whole system works between the towns, Bullet Town, Oil Town, and I think the other one is Water Town or something. I like that we see some of the characters that are in Fury Road, but they're not really that relevant. Immortan Joe is obviously in this, and he does have a very commanding presence in the movie, but he doesn't have too many scenes where he is the main focus. Because the main focus of this movie is Furiosa. Now, if you're a major Anna Taylor-Joy fan and want to see this movie because of her, you might be a little disappointed because she's not in the movie for too long. And the early parts in the movie where Furiosa is played by a younger actress were surprisingly good. I thought they were very intriguing parts of the movie to get you into this mood, and the fact that it is a kid in this environment just makes it feel a lot more heavy. She was giving a lot of time to prove to the audience that she is a major badass and that her tragic past does lead to what she does in Fury Road, and it makes a lot of sense. And if we're talking about performances, I have to give a major shout out to Chris Hemsworth, who completely steals the show. If you've seen other reviews of this movie, everyone says how great he was. I did sometimes get distracted by the makeup on his nose. I felt sometimes the lighting made it look a bit fake. So that's something you can't really play around with in Hollywood unless they CGI fix it like they did with Superman's mustache in Justice League. From a performance standpoint, Chris Hemsworth has a lot of fun. I think a lot of the characters in this movie just are having a lot of fun with what they're doing. An interesting aspect of the movie that I don't think is being talked about a lot is the forgetfulness of characters in this movie. Until the end of the movie, Chris Hemsworth forgets who Furiosa is, even though at the start of the movie there's a big portion that is dedicated to the fact that Furiosa and Chris Hemsworth have, I wouldn't say a relationship, but they do definitely have a history with each other, and we as the audience are just meant to realize that Chris Hemsworth completely forgets who Furiosa is, which might also fuel Furiosa more to get her revenge on him. It's the sort of storytelling that I really like in revenge plots, when you, as the audience, know certain things, but the characters don't. And that gives the whole narrative a lot more spice. And since this is a Mad Max movie, and Mad Max movies are mostly known for their action, let's talk about the action. There are two major action scenes in this movie. The first one is a bit more CGI heavy. In general, this movie has a lot more noticeable CGI compared to Fury Road, but to me that didn't really stick out that much. There are some practical effects where I was like, whoa, that does look really, really good. There's a moment in this movie which is similar to the "they fly now" moment in the last Star Wars movie they produced. And I think it's done so much better because there's no character on screen telling you they fly now. But both action sequences are very thrilling, very intense. The music is great as well. The sound design is amazing. I do have to give major credit to sound design in these kind of things. Everything being perfectly loud and in your face, but also at the same time not being obnoxious and overshadowing everything else. You know in this movie that Furiosa is going to live, but at the same time you don't know who else is going to survive and what is going to happen to all the other characters. Now, I've been giving this movie a lot of praise, but there is a little gripe for me. To me, I don't like the way they get to the ending. I like the ending itself. I think the ending is great, but the 2 scenes before the ending, I am not a big fan of. The scene leading to the ending felt a bit rushed and was also kind of lazily done. And the whole thing feels kind of expository, and it seemed they were running out of budget. I don't think that was intended for it to be the way it was, but maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I wasn't a big fan of it. I don't like when a movie just tells you something happens and then you're just kind of like, oh, it happened and it finished and you're not getting anything out of it. I guess we have to live with it. But the ending itself was still good enough, satisfying to say the least. And yeah, in general, overall, a great movie-going experience. I think it's still in cinemas for some of you. I have seen that the Blu-ray has already released. Since this movie surprisingly flopped, I mean, surprisingly is a weird way to say it because this movie did come out 9 years after Mad Max Fury Road, so the momentum on that movie has kind of, slowed down. It doesn't captivate the audience to go to the cinema to watch the highly anticipated prequel of the Fury Road. And it has to also be pointed out, I think I said at the start, this movie is not as good as Mad Max Fury Road. Furiosa has some moments where it slows down a bit too much for me, and some moments that really took me out of the movie where I, was not invested in the movie at some point and, thinking outside the movie, which is something you don't want because, you have to have an immersive experience with movie going. Which Mad Max Fury Road did have 100%. There was not a single moment when I watched Fury Road where I would say that I was thinking about anything other than looking at the screen and being completely immersed in the experience. Whereas with Furiosa, there were a couple of moments where I would step back and be like, huh? Wait, what? Oh yeah, I'm watching a movie. Now I have to go back into watching movie mode and sort of discount my disbelief for certain things. But overall, I would say a very solid movie-going experience. If you can still watch it in cinemas, go ahead and do so if you are interested in the movie. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. I wouldn't say it's closer to a 7 or a 9. I think it is a very solid 8. It still has a lot of good action scenes, some great performances, especially by Chris Hemsworth. Also, both the actresses that do play Furiosa do a decent job at portraying the character and her calm demeanor and the inner rage, the inner female rage that comes with it. Alright, now we talk about a complete opposite movie of Furiosa. I mean, it's no Barbenheimer like we had last year, but Furiosa and Inside Out. I mean, if they came out on the same day, that would have been a pretty cool little thing that they could have done, but I guess they didn't want to do that. But Inside Out 2 is the sequel to the highly acclaimed Pixar movie Inside Out, which tells the story of Riley and portrays the emotions as their own characters. In the first movie, I will also give a small little review of the first movie. I have not seen the first movie ahead of the second, so it's kind of distant memory. I really liked the first movie. I didn't see it in cinemas. I think this was during a time where I wasn't the biggest fan of what Pixar has been doing. Since it came out after Cars 2, Brave, and Monsters University, and Inside Out gave new life to Pixar, but then they released The Good Dinosaur afterwards. So, not the greatest timeline for Disney. Also, Inside Out came out in 2015, just like Mad Max Fury Road. So, very interesting. They really could have done something there. They could have done a Barbenheimer too, and I think it would have helped out Mad Max do better at the box office for sure. Quick review of Inside Out. I thought it was a very strong, emotion-filled movie, which Pixar has always done very well. Also has a great soundtrack, which to me was a big standout in the first movie as well. And it has a really sad character death in the first one, which I thought was something that I haven't seen from Disney and Pixar in a while during 2015, and it caught me off guard. It didn't make me cry because I'm a manly man, but it almost got me there. It was very close. And the conclusion of the story, spoilers, is to accept sadness as an emotion and to not always be able to feel joy, in that sadness is an essential characteristic of us as humans, and that sadness can be part of who we are. It is definitely a great moral to the story that was trying to be told about emotions, and I thought first movie, great movie-going experience, 9 out of 10. Now as for the second one, this is also 9 years after the first one, so the main audience for the first one has grown up quite a bit, and this movie also has grown up quite a bit. It tackles a very mature theme of teenage emotions, and there is a character in this movie that I think really portrays teenage angst very well. I don't want to go too deep into spoilers because I do think this movie's still out in cinemas and that you can still watch it, and I definitely recommend you guys watch it. If you do have kids, for sure watch it. If you have a girlfriend, to watch it. If you're alone and need something to cheer you up a little bit, go watch it. A lot of ways to watch this movie and just have a solid little old time with it. And while the story beat of, oh no, we're lost in the void of the human mind and we need to find our way back to the main center, is the same, the stakes and the message you learn and get out of it in the end are very different from the first one. It's not that, oh, we have to accept the new emotions being part of the team. Joy clearly has learned the lesson from the first movie. All the other emotions have also, they're very accepting to these emotions at first. And then funnily enough, those new emotions are the ones that create the chaos. They are surprisingly villains. So yeah, we have these new emotions that are the conflict creators, and the way they conclude the story and how they use certain visual metaphors. I don't want to call them metaphors. They just call it visual storytelling to portray certain things. Also, I thought the humor was pretty good in this one. There's one scene where my cinema laughed a lot. I laughed once, but the cinema loved it. And that was also due to a lot of the animation being very unique. I like when animation movies don't just have one animation style throughout the entire thing. I like when they blend in other formats. And there are some jokes here and there that, you know, get a little giggle out of you even during the serious scenes. I like that they also fleshed out the other emotions outside of joy and sadness, because in the previous movies, both the emotions kind of felt like filler. There's one of the new emotions that joins the team that I thought was a bit redundant, so that was kind of meh. But now the question is this better than the first movie? And me personally, I think it is. I like this movie a lot more because in Inside Out 1, you're meant to not like the main character, whereas in this movie, it is the antagonist who has that similar role to fill as the emotion that doesn't really know its place exactly in the whole dynamic between emotions. It made them more mature, so I like when protagonists are mature and smarter people, and emotionally the first one does have harder hitting moments, but I think as an overall experience and the way the movie makes you feel at certain points, I felt the second one really does a better job at portraying the emotions at that time and also coexisting with Riley during the same moments. There's a very standout scene towards the end, and it gave the movie a great climax to have big stakes at a very grounded story, which this movie also does really well. Because also in the first one, the whole like Riley wants to go away, she wants to flee the country, like I didn't buy it, whereas everything in this movie seems more realistic and grounded. As for rating, I would give this one a very similar rating to the first movie though. I would still give it a 9. Closer to a 10. I think if I would have children at my ripe age of 26, I think I would probably give this a 10 since of the enjoyment of the kid, you know, and everything. I did enjoy this movie a lot, and it felt like a mature sequel to an already mature predecessor. And yeah, that wraps up my first ever movie review of some mainstream Hollywood movies. Write down in the comments which movies from the upcoming month of July you want me to check out. I think I will definitely be checking out the Deadpool Wolverine movie. I think that one's definitely high up on the list, as well as potentially A Quiet Place Day 1. If there's any other movies you want me to check out, write them down in the comments. Also, if you are from a European country and have some classic European movies that you want to recommend me, write it down in the comments below as well. And if you enjoyed this movie, please leave a like, subscribe for more movie reviews, and I'll see you soon.